In 2003, the United States launched an unprovoked invasion of Iraq, destroyed that nation, and transformed it into a colony. Its proud professional army was disbanded. Its government institutions, run by the Baath Party, were dismembered, and its national oil company was privatized. The United States created a puppet government and army controlled with the massive spy system that identifies and liquidates dissidents called terrorists. The billions of dollars earned each year from Iraqi oil exports is sent to the New York Federal Reserve Bank that Americans use to manage Iraqi government operations, to include the pay for its government officials and generals. Tales of the American Empire produced Stealing Oil from Iraq, which explains that seizing Iraqi oil reserves was the key objective of the 2003 invasion. There was no bad intelligence that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. American Secretary of State Colin Powell lied to the United Nations by claiming Iraq was actively producing dangerous chemical munitions.
I cannot tell you everything that we know, but what I can share with you, when combined with what all of us have learned over the years, is deeply troubling. What you will see is an accumulation of facts and disturbing patterns of behavior. The facts in Iraq's behavior demonstrate that Saddam Hussein and his regime have made no effort to disarm as required by the international community. Indeed, the facts and Iraq's behavior show that Saddam Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
Colin Powell also condemned Iraq for a 1988 gas attack on a Kurdish village that killed 5,000 innocents, knowing that it was Iranian gas that killed them during a battle. See the Tales of the American Empire video link below. Saddam never gassed Kurds. Powell also criticized Iraq's attacks on its Kurdish minority, but failed to mention that American Special Forces soldiers were in Iraq to arm and train Kurds to attack Iraqi government forces. Senator Joe Biden was a leading proponent for invading Iraq. He appeared in northern Iraq uninvited by its government to show reporters his concern for suffering Kurds, but did not mention this was caused by American sanctions. Biden is a loyal neocon who sought American control of Iraq's massive oil reserves, wanted American military bases in Iraq, and wanted to eliminate another opponent to plans for a greater Israel. See the Tales of the American Empire video link below, Conquering the Middle East. The 2003 invasion of Iraq was a great success for the empire. American government insiders made millions of dollars from the invasion and ongoing occupation. Iraq is run as a colony from the massive U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Finished in 2009 at a cost of $1 billion, this walled American city is the largest embassy in the world at 104 acres, nearly as large as Vatican City. The embassy complex is about 5 times the size of the second largest U.S. embassy, from where it controls the Iraqi military with 8,000 American paid contractors. The United States also has modern military air bases in Iraq protected by American soldiers. Iraqi oil fields are back to full production under foreign control. The biggest share goes to America's Exxon, British Petroleum, and Royal Dutch Shell. China and Russia are also allowed a big share, probably to assure that United Nations resolutions were not blocked, although Exxon has probably taken over Russia's share due to sanctions. These oil companies are required to pay for this oil by depositing funds into the Federal Reserve Bank in New York. This secret banking led to massive corruption, as several $billion is unaccounted for in a huge scandal everyone ignores. See the link below. Iraqis are unhappy as a colony and consider the 2003 American invasion a war crime that killed over 500,000 Iraqis. Most of the destruction has not been rebuilt, Millions of Iraqis are displaced refugees, and corruption is rampant. They want all American troops to leave. Even most Americans now think the 2003 invasion was a mistake, and many think American troops left in 2011 because their president and the American media told them so.
As a candidate for president, I pledge to bring the war in Iraq to a responsible end, for the sake of our national security and to strengthen American leadership around the world. After taking office, I announced a new strategy that would end our combat mission in Iraq and remove all of our troops by the end of 2011. As Commander-in-Chief, ensuring the success of this strategy has been one of my highest national security priorities. Last year, I announced the end to our combat mission in Iraq, and to date, we've removed more than 100,000 troops. Iraqis have taken full responsibility for their country's security.
An historic Sunday morning.
Let's set the scene for you right now. We are paused just a couple of hundred yards from the border into Kuwait to let some vehicles in front of us go in first. These are the last vehicles of the U.S. convoy out of Iraq. This is a medevac unit. These are the last soldiers who will actually cross over the border into Kuwait. You see a beautiful sunrise. It's coming up over the desert. And what's behind us? Absolutely nothing.
Most American troops left in 2011, but several thousand remain hidden away as training units and backed by American combat units in nearby Kuwait. They engage in occasional combat as part of ongoing Operation Inherent Resolve. Here is video of the U.S. Army's 1st Battalion, 148th Infantry Regiment in Iraq in January 2023. In this ceremony, soldiers are being awarded a combat patch for serving in a combat zone. By April 2023, this occupation cost the lives of 4,600 U.S. troops in Iraq and an equal number of American contractors. Iraqis are tired of the 20-year American occupation, and protests are common. Their puppet government is organized so that the president of Iraq is from a small non-Arab minority called the Kurds, and all its presidents have graduated from British universities. In 2020, Iraq's parliament rebelled and voted to expel all American troops from Iraq. American President Donald Trump threatened to seize billions of dollars from Iraq's New York oil account to repay the United States for the cost of its military bases in Iraq if the government expelled American troops. American leaders continue to ignore this demand, blame unrest in Iraq on Iranian interference, and continue to rule and loot Iraq.
The two sides agreed that there will be no American military bases in Iraq, and therefore there will be no foreign bases. This is what was agreed upon today, at the end of the third round of the strategic dialogue.
Relations between the two countries have been fraught, particularly following the U.S. airstrike in January last year that killed top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani and an Iraqi militia leader near Baghdad airport. In the wake of the attack, Iraqi lawmakers passed a non-binding resolution on US-led coalition forces leaving the country. And though relations have improved slightly after Mustafa al-Kadhimi took over as prime minister, some parties like the Iran-backed Fatah bloc continue to demand US withdrawal. The calls further fueled after President Biden ordered an airstrike on a militia base on the Syrian side of the Iraqi border in January. US soldiers and contractors are the target of regular attacks by militia groups, and the Biden administration says it will not hesitate to respond if the Iraqi government doesn't. Despite all these factors, the US does not envisage an imminent withdrawal, a Pentagon spokesman making clear that though this is a subject of ongoing discussion, there is no timeline.
The mission's still valid. The invitation by the Iraqi government is still in place, and we're continuing, as we have been, even before today's talks, to talk with the Iraqi government about what that mission and that footprint is supposed to look like.
The American disregard of Iraq public opinion is seen by the current U.S. ambassador to Iraq. Alina Romankowski is Jewish, attended the University of Tel Aviv, and worked for the CIA for a decade while posted in Israel. She is certainly qualified to serve as ambassador, but she is a poor cultural fit to gain trust in Muslim Iraq that was invaded and destroyed with strong support from Israel. America's corporate media never calls Iraq a colony, but small news sites sometimes report the truth.
As of March 20th, 2023, you have about 2,500 soldiers, U.S. soldiers, that are deployed mainly in the al-Assad air base. So a simple question that comes out of this is, what is the U.S. doing in Iraq anyways?
What it's doing in Iraq is just trying to hold on to its control of Iraqi oil sources and resources, I should say, and also being sure or trying to assure that the Iraqi government doesn't step out of line, that it continues to toe the U.S. line and do as the U.S. demands.
What would be the U.S. line when you say that? I'm sorry to jump in.
No, that's fine. It's being sure that the hostility to Iran remains. Of course, they failed on that. Is to ensure that the U.S. government gets the oil that it wants, however much it wants. It's to assure that Iraq doesn't get too friendly with Russia or any of the other of the U.S.'s other self-named and self-described enemies. That it simply acts as a puppet of the U.S. in the Middle East. This is something that the government of Iraq has not been interested in doing for some time, and especially in the last few years since the invasion, which was a brutal invasion occupation. It was all a false flag operation. We remember all the talk about weapons of mass destruction, which of course were never found because they didn't exist. The U.S. simply wanted to destabilize another country there and gain control over it, install a government that would be friendly to the U.S. and compliant to U.S. demands, and that's what it attempted to do. Okay. However, that's not working quite the way the U.S. expected, which often happens with U.S. invasions.
Well, it wasn't working quite the way that the U.S. expected, and things really got thorny when Kevin Barrett, you had that U.S. drone strike that was responsible for the assassination of the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani. Now, when that happened, there was plenty of reason for Iraq not want the U.S. on its soil. As a matter of fact, they went and they took a vote in Parliament and they said the U.S. troops need to be ousted from Iraq. So again, but that hasn't transpired. What are the U.S. troops doing there? I mean, what is their mission there? I mean, what do they do when they wake up? I mean, what purpose do they serve?
Well, that's a question that Americans are asking more and more, and they will be asking increasingly as the petrodollar declines and the ability to pay for all of these American troops stationed all over the world becomes in question. And we're going to start having to ask that, what are they really doing there? Well.